Yeah, this is no. So picking up from the last video, as you can see in this video, everything looks a little bit different, starting with the reservoirs here. We changed it from the very big reservoirs, the 400s, to the 250s. And instead of doing them diagonal, I decided to go horizontal and try to do a parallel system with the two horizontal reses in the middle there. So that's what I'm trying to figure out right now is the fittings, where they're going to go, how this is going to work. The big problem with the bigger reservoirs was that they were just too big and you couldn't really get them at a 45-degree angle to be able to make all the fittings work. So here I've decided to tone it down. I brought in the Red Harbinger res covers to put on the X3 res from EK, and now I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to make these two reservoirs join together to make a parallel system, as you can see by the bits power 3-ways that I'm putting in here. So that'll be able to have one tube come in on the import on the fittings and one tube go out for the out. Here I ended up having to re-drill all the holes around the desk for the fans, as these fan holes were literally M3s and I needed to put an M4 in there, and I needed to be able to on the sides put in the screws that come with the fans. So here I'm just re-drilling all these holes, and then I end up using my deburr tool to take down any of the leftover mess that's left after drilling. As you can see, when I go into the inside of the desk here, I can't fit the drill in there, so I have to use my hand deburr tool. We got the radiators and fans in back here. We got all the holes drilled. So now what I need to do is I'm actually going to come over here and remove the drive bays over here. Well, both drive bays, the hard drive bays and then the 5 1/4 bays. The hard drive bays, I need to remove them because they have the plates underneath, and I'll be utilizing them for some of the hard drives. So they have to come out. Also, they need to come out because of the fact I need to deburr those holes over there. Yeah, so we're going to do that. We've nailed down what we're going to do with the reservoir setup. Just something simple, basic and clean. We'll have two cylinder reses here. I'm going to go ahead and use the Red Harbinger cylinder covers for the EK X3 reses. And we'll have basically 2 3-ways here, one in and one out. That'll basically make this kind of like a parallel system, I guess you could say. So we have the in come in, fill both of them, and then come out. And then we also will have the stainless reservoir over here. Alright, so we're trying to figure out the pump layout over here to tie in the actual filling reservoir, the backup reservoir I guess you could call it. And also we opted out of the dual DDC because I was kind of a little bit worried about how much work it's going to have to do to make all this liquid travel everywhere. So I know that the D5s have a little bit more pressure. So I'm gonna go for dual D5s over here, and we came up with an idea how we're going to lay it out now. So we kind of like bridge these two together, something like this. I think I'm going to rotate this port to the side so that way it can, I'm trying to show you guys. So this port will be over here and it'll come out and come back like that. So it'll be kind of symmetrical. And then this will come probably a 90 and up and tie right into this reservoir. So, so that's the idea. And then obviously we've been trying to figure out the, well, it's not obvious to you guys, but we're trying to figure out how to connect all the fans as well. So these three will most likely plug into a three-way splitter and run all the way back to the motherboard. Nowadays your newer motherboards can support more than one fan. You just got to make sure that the header, what the capability of the header, I think the newer boards are 1 amp. So you should be able to run at least 3 fans as long as they're, like these Corsairs are 0.3 amp. So you could run 3 of those because that's under an amp. Then I have 2 banks of 4 in the back. So we're going to end up using the ROG extension or expansion card. It actually comes with the motherboard. Because if this blows up, I don't really care. You know, I have another one. So what I'm going to try to do is run 4 fans off of each 2 of the headers here and see what happens. Being that it's getting more power, I think it should be fine. But I didn't really do any research on what that's capable of. So being that I have like 3 more of them, so if I blow that one up, hey, whatever.
3 days later.
Okay, so it's been a couple days. I had to order a bunch of fittings. So now what we're going to do is we're going to mark off the areas for where the pumps are going to get mounted and where the reservoirs are going to get mounted. So I'm going to go ahead and tape those areas off. For the reservoirs, I'll be measuring exactly where they're going to be at. The pumps are going to be kind of an eyeball situation because I already have this pre-configured fitting set up. So I kind of want to run with that and not actually be like, okay, well, measure over 4 inches and make a mark. I'll just put the pump down, lock it into place, make my marks from there, and we'll show you how we're going to do that. So let's get to it. So what I'm doing here is I'm eyeballing the bracket here at the bottom of the pump, and I'm putting outside marks for the center hole, and then what I'm going to try to do is put a mark on each side as well. So what I'll end up having is 8 total little dots here, and basically what they're going to do is if I take a ruler and a pen and connect the dots, then you have all these straight lines. Then ideally you should be able to take this template here and throw the template over the top of it, and the line should cross right through the middle. So that's a goal here. I was just trying to get the pen in here without, and this is probably not going to be perfect, but I mean for the most part, that's what the template's for, because the template actually gives you the correct hole spacing. Okay, so we got a couple points there, so I'll just go ahead and pull this out and show you. So now what I have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and same thing over here. I know it's hard to see some of them, So what I'm going to do now is connect the dots. I'll draw a line with my, not with the Sharpie, but this guy. And I'm going to draw them super long because the template is a little bit wider than where the holes are going to be at. So I want to try to connect that together. And this is just basic reference. I mean, you're just trying to get the hole pattern, that template down here. So these might not be perfectly straight, who knows. But once you put the pattern here, it should be good. Alright, so, and what you could do too to find out how accurate everything is take your ruler, and whether you use millimeters or inches, totally your call. So I'm just past 3/4 on that line. So let's go to the other end of the line. It's a little off, but it's not major. And then on the top line, I am 5 1/8. I should just slide here. And here, just under 4. And just under 4. So that line's straight. So now the trick to this is because it doesn't want to stick to the tape, is kind of put it on there the best you can. And then put a couple pieces of tape maybe on it. Well, that's gonna suck, isn't it? Doesn't look too bad. And then now you can come in and actually measure in relevance to the chassis itself. So we're 1 click under 4 here. And yeah, that's about the same. So now that I've got these marked off, this location here for the 2 pumps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my punch and I'm going to punch the spots, so that way I don't get any drifting from my drill bit, and we have a nice perfect start spot. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus, once you start drilling into these templates, they like to lift up, so you don't really want to rely on them. They're good for getting your hole placement with a punch. And what I'll be doing is I'll be over drilling the holes a little bit. The reason being is in case I need a little bit of play or movement when I'm putting my fittings together, just to get everything lined properly. And what I've done is I've checked my drill bit versus the screw head, because the last thing you want to do is pick a drill bit that's going to be bigger than the actual head of the screw, because then the screw goes right through, unless you put washers. So I opted out from starting with the bigger bit. I dropped down to an 1/8 inch bit. Reason being is the punch hole is so small, it's better to just start with a nice sharper point versus a wider point. So I went down to the 1/8 inch bit, so that way I can just get a little pilot spot here so I can see it clearly. You know, I'm getting old, can't see very well. So then now I'll take my bigger bit, which I don't even know what size this is, 3/16. And I'll finish this up. All right, so that's it for this spot. What you can also do, what I like to do a lot of times, is I come in with my deburr tool and I'll hit the top area, and if I can get to the bottom area, I'll hit the bottom area as well. That just cleans up any of the debris from when you drilled through, especially on the back side. On the top, sometimes you get a little bit of debris as well. So I'll take the deburr tool and just kind of run it. And if you can't get your drill in there, there's also another deburring tool seen in the G-Force garage videos. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to get the measurement distance between the two brackets here, and then also from this bracket to that bracket. So that way what I'll do is this is about where I want to be at. So let me take my pen and just kind of make a mark here, because this is about the spot I want. I'm not going to do it over here because this I'm trying to get super square. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to flip it upside down. So I'm going to measure in between here. So this is 10 1/8, so 7 1/8, right? 7 1/8 that way. And just to be on the safe side, I'll write that down. 7 1/8. Okay, in case I forget or something. Since it's not going to be convenient to measure like that, I'll move this over here. Yeah, we can make that 8 inches because of the fact that I have these sliders here, so we can move it around a little bit. So we'll just go 8. So 8 inches this way. So the way I'll mark the drain port is I want to get this locked in place first, and then I'll kind of do what I did over here is I'll mark it like that, and I'll try to get all the way around, and then I'll tie those together, make an X. X marks the spot, drill a hole. Failed to mention, because you need to know how long your reservoirs are, right? It's 250 millimeters, basically. We know that already. But I'm in inches, so it's 9/16. So 10 9/16. So you can do that, or you can do what I like to usually do is just kind of eyeball stuff, but
this advanced technique called eyeballing.
It's the advanced technique of, this'll work. But for the most part, I think center here right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark this one as my center point, and then I'll mark this one as my center point, and then I'll measure that, and that should be 7 1/8. So if I go here and I go there, yeah, it's pretty freaking close. Okay, just so you don't lose your mark, circle it. So that was here and somewhere here. All right? Yeah. All right, cool. Now what I need to do is I'll connect those. I know it doesn't look square because the tape's not square, but alright, so we got 2 lines there now. Okay, so what I'm doing basically, I'm not trying to get square on this wall, I just want it square on here. And what I'm doing is running off that line. That'll give me my mark. And I'm trying not to scratch up the case either because I don't want to have to repowder coat it. So ideally that should be good. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll come back in and check my measurements, because we should have 8 inches from this line to this line. And then we should have 7 1/8 in between the points. And that should be it. We'll just have to mark this guy once we get all that in there. So I know this is, yeah, and this of course was 3 7/8. So we're good there. And this should be 7/8. 7/8. Actually,
I mean, you'll have leeway
Both ways.
both ways.
Yeah, no,
Except for
actually it looks
this
okay.
way, I guess.
Okay, so let's drill some freaking holes again. So what you got to keep in mind too when you're doing drilling like this or any kind of cutting, obviously when you cut as well, it's kind of the same method. You want to tape everything off. The reason you tape everything off is because you can draw on it and it's easy to draw and see it. I'm sorry, that sounded retarded. It's easy to see the drawing on the tape, but it also protects your area. So like if I wouldn't have taped all these areas off over here, when I drilled the hole, what happens is the aluminum or metal or whatever it is, the shaving will create a spiral. That spiral, if it hits your metal, it'll spiral on the metal. And as you can see on some of our fan holes that we cut out, they have spirals on them. If you're not too concerned about the area, or you're going to powder coat it, or it's empty metal, then it's totally up to you how you do it. But I just advise taping it off because it makes life easier in the end. So another thing we were talking about is there's a subfloor underneath this. So there's another plate literally less than an inch away from this one. So when I'm drilling the hole, I have to be careful not to just go at it, you know, because I don't want to mess up the pieces below it. Just like when I was drilling for the reservoirs, or not the reservoirs, the pumps, there was actually a lip on the edge of the desk that I could have actually hit. But that's why I was kind of holding the drill back from going too far. That's it. So now we'll just have to deburr some holes. You guys have already seen that. So we're not going to show that again. So now that I've deburred the holes and we've got the holes drilled and deburred, I'm going to go ahead and pull the tape up here. I'm going to leave this piece of tape because I still need to mark where the drain port will be at. So we have 2 nice clean holes there. And then also vacuumed out as much of the shavings as possible. Alright, so that's that. So now what I'm going to do is drop the brackets in here for the reservoirs. So that way I can figure out where this guy's going to be at. These brackets have an Allen on them, an Allen screw. So I want the Allen screws facing out. So that way I can tighten them down after their reservoirs are dropped into them. So for the most part, I'm hoping that these are going to be perfectly where they need to be at, because I know I have a little bit of play. But those reservoirs on the res covers have little locking spots where these hooks actually lock into. So hopefully that's good. Guess we'll find out. Should be right there. So now what I'll do is I'll roll one edge into it. And like butter. And that's, look at that, nice and sturdy, locked in there. So now technically I'd be able to tighten down my guys here and here if I wanted to, but this one still has to move some. So all right, so I'm gonna mark it on the side here, eyeball it, eyeball it, eyeball it, and somehow, some miracle, I'm gonna eyeball this side and hope that's the middle. Yeah, it looks like it. All right, so now what I need to do is pull them back out. Then I'll just connect the dots. That's where I want to drill my hole. This one's gonna get a little more sketchy than a regular hole because I'll be using a stepper bit. That will step the hole down, make it bigger and bigger and bigger. So now what I need to do is put more tape here because it will scratch everything. Alright, so we'll do our same. Since there's no piece under there no more, I don't have to worry about it. So I did a small bit and then I'm going to a bigger bit because I need something to, so that this can start to bite into. The small hole just takes too long. And that was pretty good because I hardly ever use that bit. Alright, here we go. And I might have to use oil. Yeah, okay, so one thing you might want to think about too is covering everything. At least your electronics.
That's a good tip.
So some parts of the drill bit obviously are
Sharper.
sharper.
Yeah, because I saw it just tear through.
Yeah, I gotta either oil this or cool it down.
Oh, I can smell it.
Yeah.
Woo.
Smoking. Okay, now before you get too far, what you want to do is you want to take your fitting and check before you go too far, because you don't have a lot of lip on the edge here. So if you go too big, then you end up having a fitting that just drops right through, and then you have to put a washer under it as well. Okay, so all we need to do is literally go a tiny bit more, and this is good. And then the fun part, deburr it. When I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. That's it right there. All right, so we've run out of time for today, and I'm just gonna do some cleanup. I'll deburr this edge here, and then we'll pick it up tomorrow.